Well, thank you. And one of the strangest thing about sitting up like this with lights is I can't really see anybody. Generally I like to connect with an audience. But thank you. And I'm sitting here because I hurt my leg, and so I can't. I'm not as mobile. It's really an amazing thing to have the opportunity to teach the stuff that I teach here now. I teach classes on happiness and wellness and stress management and spiritual well-being, and it's a real privilege. And when they asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned something like the science of happiness, I don't quite even know what that is, but what's so rich about that is that's what we're all trying to figure out. Like it's a very interesting thing to be teaching at a world-class institution, and where intellect is so prevalent and achievement, and yet underneath that is everybody's craving to try to figure out how to have a happy life. And there's a poignancy sometimes teaching at Stanford, because many of the people here have achieved great things, but not happiness. And it's a very interesting kind of dialectic at some level. I remember when I was a graduate student here, and I would see some of my professors, not necessarily the professors, but the people in the building that I was taking classes in, and some of them were remarkably accomplished, but didn't seem like content people. And there's something very interesting about that when your field is like education or psychology. Because those who can't teach, you know what I'm saying? It's the biggest challenge that we all have, is how to be content, peaceful, happy, enjoy a world that is in constant turmoil and danger. And and even just thinking about it, as I was walking over here, I mean, I don't give long preparation for talks like this, so you got the 5 minutes from my parking the car to here, but that's more than some people get. But I was thinking about the dual nature of this, that we all live reasonably wealthy, and the world has accommodated us, and we have plenty to eat, and we have the opportunity to, say, maximize our potential. And so we have at one strand tremendous opportunity and possibility and benefit. On the other hand, we have exactly what every other human being has, which is that we respond to what the Buddhists refer to as like the elemental suffering of life. That inherent in all of life is some dissatisfaction, because everything changes and nothing lasts. So even though I may have achieved a lot, it's an interesting thing, because I hear my achievements sometimes, that I'm a this and a that, and I graduated then, and I got this thing. And all that's in the past. And that's a very different question than what am I now? Stanford, I did graduate from Stanford, so I could get my little thing that said Stanford PhD 1999. But that was 13 years ago. And so what am I now? What makes me happy now? Or yes, I've done work in troubled spots in the world, and I believe I've made a minor difference, but that was in the past. And what makes me happy now? Is it just memory traces? Or is it stories that I tell myself about my accomplishments or my achievements or the good I've done? Is that what it is? Because that's what we're kind of taught in an achievement-dominated culture, and that's how I'm introduced. And I'm introduced like this all the time, so it's nothing that these people didn't set out to introduce me wrong. But I'm introduced almost always from the past. Fred was. Fred accomplished this back in the day. But what does he do now? Right? And what gives him juice now? Those are missing from resume, exhortations and resume like listings. And that points out that essential, unbelievable difficulty of trying to be happy in a world where everything fades away. It's really hard. This is not a minor undertaking of trying to be happy in this world. Because everything that we have done and everything that we have achieved and everything that we have created, both we did it in the past and somewhere as life goes on, it will end. And what might happiness mean in that kind of experience is not an easy question. I remember talking on the phone maybe a month ago to the person who was my supervisor and sat on my dissertation committee and actually was a co-author of one of my books out there. And he was talking about how quickly, when he left Stanford, everything that he built faded away. That the programs that he built and the things that he worked on, they dissipated within a couple of years. And it was an existential, he's done other things in other places, but he was commenting existentially on, wow, I was here for more than a decade and built, and then it fades. And so the thing that makes happiness challenging is when you look at what might it mean to try to be so when things fade away and when things alter. I remember once giving a talk, and this is where my kind of rude New York City kind of attitude came out, which I have less of it after being out here for a long time, but it's not gone. I remember I was giving a talk on aging and some degree of forgiveness, which was, anybody who looks in the mirror knows you have to have a lot of forgiveness. But I remember speaking about how aging is a challenge to happiness because it just shows us what life is. It's an ever-changing process of change. And a baby boomer jumped up out of the audience in full denial, wearing denial like a cloak. Well, we're not going to get as old as, our parents' generation did. And I thought she was a plant, from Candid Camera or something. What, are you kidding? We're not going to get as old? Come on, get real. And she's going on about how there's all these new scientific advances and, aging will be different for us. And I'm thinking, well, every single thing ages and dies. It's not just you, honey. You know what I mean? It's like everything. And she's just so intense. And when I asked her if she had looked in the mirror recently, it's very hard to be happy in real life, which has us change. And our children grow up, and our parents die, and we retire, and the things we build alter. And so there has emerged in the last maybe 15 years a science of happiness. It's nascent. It's not just beginning, but it's not a robust science yet. But it's wonderful because it's bringing the methods of science to that which is right about people. When I got my PhD here in psychology, what I thought, and this is again me being sarcastic, I thought I was being trained to be a high priest of misery. That's what a psychologist was. Because all I learned about was depression and anger and, anxiety and whoa. Now, who really is that interested in whoa all day long? No, but seriously, it's not that interesting. One whoa walks in, another one walks out. I mean, if you're a therapist, it's just one whoa after another. Yeah, you want to help. But I felt like the whole point of psychology was missing, which is, how do you do this life in a way that makes it satisfying? Not just how do you patch people up who have stumbled and fell. And that question struck me all the time that I was here. Because I remember being trained as a therapist and never being told, well, tell your clients to love more. Not to worry about whether their mother loved them, but to love more. Or train them to be compassionate. Or train them to forgive. Or train them to see if they're disagreeing with their partner, whether they can be kinder. Like, positive. What would you do if you had an hour to live and you wanted your life to work? You wouldn't complain about your mother. It's that simple. You wouldn't mention anything about what somebody didn't give you. If you had if you had an hour left, you'd be trying to touch whatever beauty there is. I mean, I don't have enough experience with that, but that's just my guess. And so I realized there was something just really wrong with what's wrong as the primary orientation. And so I started the Stanford Forgiveness Project. But it was based on this idea that, as the Dalai Lama has said, you have to practice the conditions of happiness to be happy. So if you practice conditions that make people unhappy, then you'll get unhappy. So complaining, arguing as a pastime, those tend to create conditions of unhappiness. If you practice the conditions that create happiness, you have a better chance of being happy. So I created the Stanford Forgiveness Project around that idea instead of the Stanford Anger Project. Because I felt that people didn't need more training in how to be angry. I figured they did that really well on their own. What they didn't do as well is forgive. And so I was part of a group of people in all sorts of different fields, all sorts of different ways, discovering positive psychology. Like, what's right? What's good? And what can we hold on to so that people can grow, I can grow, to become more of a human being? And as the research came out and as it continues to unfold, what's really interesting is a lot of it is everything you needed to know you learned in kindergarten. It's not that complicated. It's not that subtle. And that's what's so fascinating, trying to teach some of it here. Because we're not used to the uncomplicated and the subtle. When you get a PhD here, you study like some minute field that nobody else is interested in. You know what I'm saying? And you overstudy it. And here's happiness, which everybody is interested in. And you understudy it, which is a fascinating thing. But it's not that, the research is, it's not that complicated. So I was thinking, what are some of the things that the research show? And it's very interesting. So people who are more attractive than less attractive people are not necessarily happier. Now, they're certainly not less happy. So don't go making yourself less attractive. It's that attractiveness in and of itself doesn't contribute that much to happiness. What does contribute to happiness is liking the way you look, being comfortable. Well, that could have been told by a kindergarten teacher. probably more eloquently, and without wasting like 4,000 undergraduates' time doing experiments. Right? So like yourself, kid, and you'll probably be happier. But you take somebody who's modestly attractive, feels good about themselves, they're fine. You take somebody who's highly attractive, doesn't feel good about himself, or is always staring at the mirror, they're going to be less fine. Attractiveness by itself doesn't lead that much to happiness. But we spend so much time trying to make ourselves more attractive, rather than trying to be more accepting of ourselves. You don't watch TV with people selling you stuff to be more accepting. Right? They'll sell you stuff that'll make your hair fluffier, I think, right? It's, fluffier, curlier, you can run your hand through it better, all the things that are vital to well-being. Right? Imagine if you don't have fluffy hair that you can run your hair through. I mean, how can you wake up in the morning? But we're told that that's going to make us happier. Okay? But we're not told, even in our schools or in our universities, that one of the things that will make you much happier is to be kind. To be kind. To have goodwill in your heart to other people will make you happier. And that can be cultivated. So we can be taught to make sure that we get the right shampoo, or we can be taught to make sure that we get the absolute perfect extras on the perfect car for us, which contributes almost nothing to happiness, or we can be taught to be better human beings, which contributes more to happiness. Our culture isn't screaming at you to be a nicer person. But it is flashing stuff all the time to make sure you get the right car and the right latte. That's another essential for happiness. Is exactly what of the 40 kinds of coffee do you want? And we have been led to believe that that will contribute anything. An attitude that does contribute a lot when you walk into a place that has 40 coffees is to be grateful that you can walk into a place that has 40 coffees. That attitude will make you happier. Getting your perfect coffee will not. Now, getting the wrong coffee won't make you happier either. That's where it gets interesting. That's the piece that is so fascinating. Getting the right coffee won't make you that much happier, and getting the wrong coffee won't make you that much happier. But walking in and thinking, wow, how did I get into a position where I can just walk in and they have coffee from all around the world that I just have to order and pay for with green things or credit cards? That's more happy. That's, again, what a kindergarten teacher would know. Don't want what little Sally has, want what you have. It's good enough. You think of, or I think of, when I started thinking about and teaching happiness on this campus, of course I thought of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And the character is very dissatisfied with his life because, he pulls the thing on the stair, and it comes off, and that's not good enough, and his kids' clothes are ripped, and he never made it outside of Bedford Falls, and, he's been a dinky little loan officer in a bank for his whole life, and so his life was not successful. Until, he has his conversion experience, comes back and realizes he's loved, his work is valuable, and he's an instrumental member of his community, helping people. And he realizes how rich that is. But he has to have like a near-death experience to do that. And so what's interesting about teaching happiness or even thinking about happiness is all of us have so much cultural brainwashing that it's really hard to get past that, to think what really makes people happier. And most cultures brainwash their people to not be super happy, but to fit in their culture. You know, they don't want joyful people because they tend to think for themselves. But if you're satisfied with the right latte, you're very, very teachable. Because that is a very easy way to be bought. Or with a car with the right extras. Or with any of the millions of useless choices that we make. And again, data is showing now that our culture is having an unbelievable availability of choices for everything is making people less happy because they constantly think about their opportunity costs missed. Oh, I should have gotten that one. How would I have loved the green one instead of the blue one? Oh my God, had I had a green thing to put my butt on, I would have been so much happier. And if I had only gotten that meal and not this meal, and where it has become so dangerous to me, this obsession with having exactly what we think we need all the time, is in relationships. It's one of the ways where we have become disposable with other people. Like we have forgotten that people are different than coffee. Like we don't get to just choose, we do, but we don't get to be happy trying to make the perfect choice with another human being. What makes us happy with human beings is to appreciate them, is to bond with them, is to blend with them, is to grow, is to learn. But we have become, because of the unbelievably disposable nature and our material obsession, we talk about people that way. You know, I went out with this guy, but he didn't have that. And I'm not saying going out with the wrong person. But our language has become of commodity with people. They're not this, they're not that, it's not good enough, it isn't this. We have taken the consumer mentality, which we have all been unbelievably trained in. You know, I think, like I remember one time, a friend of mine wanted me to drive his really fancy sports car. And I knew it just wouldn't make that much difference to me. Like, it could be, I'm weird, that's fine. But I knew, and I thought it was a nice car, but I was too stuck in the point of a car, in particular in a metropolitan area, is just get you somewhere. Like, it's, you know, those commercials of going around the curve at 80 miles an hour. I can't do that on 101, you know what I mean? And so he let me drive his very fancy convertible sports car. And I thought, yeah, it's nice. I mean, it was nicer. But it wasn't nicer enough. And I thought, wow, I escaped something. You know, I escaped something. I didn't get a certain way that we're taught to think. And we're taught to, how would I say this? The simplest lessons are, am I thankful for it? Is it good? You know, does it add beauty to the world? And in my fleeting life here, is it helpful? Those deeper questions will lead us to have a perspective that will make us happier. Rather than, did I get the most thrill out of this experience? Did I maximize every opportunity I had for thrill for me? Now, there's nothing wrong with those things. It's like success. I've been extremely successful. And one of the blessings about working here is how many successful people I run into. It is astonishing, and it's wonderful. And yet, more success doesn't make people necessarily happier. And it is wonderful. I mean, the conversations that I have here, the intelligence, the depth, the accomplishment are staggering, and the people are fascinating because they're all at the top of the heap. in fields that I never heard of. But are they happier? Or, do they look at things from a point of view where they make other people happier as well? To simplify it, when they look at the research on what makes happiness, it's generally, give or take, three things: meaning and purpose, people, and positiveness. Do you have a point to your life beyond just material or personal aggrandizement? People who have a point in their life beyond material and personal aggrandizement tend to be happier. People who appreciate people who respond well to people who have social support, people who give to other people, they're happier. And people have like a tendency to like things, appreciate things. They don't need it to be perfect for them. Oh, you made me dinner. Wonderful. It's not exactly my favorite food. It's still wonderful because you made it. That's a happier attitude than, wow, I got exactly what I want. And there's nothing wrong with getting what you want. But the drive to get exactly what you want makes you not like a lot of things. An attitude of more thank you or appreciation makes you like more things. From what I can see, the biggest discernment point is people. That happier people tend to have better relationships. There's a lot of, not controversy, but there's a difference of opinion in whether marriage makes people happier or happier people make better marriages. I think they're tending to fall towards the second now. That people who are a little psychologically more healthy and happy tend to create better marriages, even though on the whole, people are happier married than not married. People matter. That's what, again, I have made so many jokes at my own expense that if you got a really competent teacher of 5-year-olds, they may not speak it the way I do, but they'd get what it is that separates happier from less happy people. And they would say it starts with how they get along with other people. And it probably not ends there as well, but that's probably the core quality of how is it that I'm oriented in space. Now, so much of the stuff that's coming up, about our neurobiology is that we almost don't see or experience the world without other people's influence on us. It starts with mom. That our whole learning experience is with the other. That the way our brain processes information is us, other. We're not solitary. I remember once listening to a Zen teacher, and he said, I listened to him for a long time. This is the only thing that I remembered. But this was so profound. He said he made himself happier when he understood that the air between us connects us rather than separates us. He said that simple, mnemonic, whatever it is, that simple aphorism, that changed his whole experience. That it wasn't that he was separate and encapsulated from other people because of air or space. It was that's what joined him. And all of a sudden, he said his world changed. That, wow, there's this living ether that binds me to everyone. And immediately, he was happier. So one of the things that I teach in the happiness classes is I ask students to look at their relationship to us and them. Like, how do they define us, and how do they define them? And I postulate that people who, through whatever grace, upbringing, work, genetic disposition, have an easier time with us are going to be happier people. So I would ask students to, visualize or think about or write about, like, what's it like when you walk into a room where you don't know anybody? Are you walking into us, or are you walking into them? Are you walking into a group of people who may welcome you? Or are you walking into a group of people with whom you're in competition, or who may find you a threat? How is it that you go through your day? How much is us? Is us just you? And then there are some really wacky people who us isn't even just them. It's like they don't like anybody. But this is one of the conceptions I understood a long time ago, that the most maybe that's too strong. There may be some people who are really excellent solitarily, but even monks who choose to be alone, so much of their practice is loving kindness towards humanity at large, if it's not towards individuals. But you go over to one end and you get, I don't know, the paranoid schizophrenic, the completely alienated, and nobody is us. And you inch your way over on that continuum till you get to most of us. And then you continue going on that continuum all the way to the other side, where you end up with Gandhi, where everybody's us, or Martin Luther King, or Jesus, or Buddha, where everybody is us. There's not anything that isn't us. And that continuum seems so important and elemental to whether or not we are happy people or happy enough. Because if it's us, then you tend to want to be kind and help. If it's them, we're in competition. We're fighting for resources. Many, many people make a life out of them. Everything's scarce here in a dog-eat-dog world. And so very little is us. And there are other people who you just see their share. They don't have that rigid tightness. And there are some people you'll meet who are unbelievably generous within their own family. Really loving and good and decent. And you get outside of the family and it's like a wall comes down. So we're all defining us and them differently. It's just in some of the work that I do, I try to work with that. Like, who's us? Who's them? Where do you draw the boundary? Where does it end? Where is it? And that's one of the fertile places that we can work with. There's an organization here on campus that I teach with, and I figured that before I was done, I would do a brief meditation on compassion. Because I'm working now for C-Care, the compassion group, the Compassion and Altruism Training Program. And they have set up a center to teach and, promulgate compassion. So that when we're with other people, we look to try to help, to feel their pain. And there is something so powerful about these pro-social, positive things. So let me stop my yakking for a minute. I'm going to do a brief compassion meditation just with everybody. I taught this like 2 nights ago in a compassion class. So if everybody please close their eyes. And just take a couple of slow, full, deep breaths into and out of your belly. And so that your belly expands a little as you inhale, so it gets bigger. And then on the exhalation, your belly contracts a little. And then what I'd like you to do is just think of someone that you naturally and already care about. That you don't have to work hard to care about. You know, picture somebody in your world where your affection is easy and genuine. And then what I'd like you to do is I'm going to say a couple of phrases. This is part of Buddhist loving kindness, but it's been totally secularized. I'm going to say out loud 3 simple phrases to wish them well. And when I say them, I'd like you to repeat them silently to yourself about this person. So the first thing I'm going to say is, may they be happy. And just say that now inside of you about them, towards them. May you be happy. And now may you be safe and free from harm. And now may you be loved. May you know you're loved. And now we're going to do one more piece of this. I want you to now, just before we're done, think for a moment when this person had some suffering in their life or some pain. Think of a time when they were troubled. And feel your natural desire to ease that pain. Your natural wish that they be happy, that they be free from suffering, that they know they're loved. And then return your attention away from any kind of, image. Just take a breath or two before you allow your eyes to open. And I'm going to have you do one more thing before I'm done, but that kind of simple practice can change who's us and who's them. So you can practice something like that. A student can practice that before they walk into a room where they don't know anybody. You just wish people well. Or you can cultivate it by thinking, when I get home, who could I try to help who's in pain? Who would my natural desire to be good and tender towards? Who would use that? And so one cultivates positive affection and interest to other people. And by doing that, one practices the conditions of happiness. We practice it. So I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I'm going to ask you to turn to somebody in the audience here that looks semi-safe, that isn't drooling or twitching or something, because I can't see. And I'd like you to have a very brief discussion of, say, sometime in the next 24 hours, how could you, pay forward a goodness? Who in your world could use a kind word? Is there any kindness you can do? Just what would be one act that you can make an intention to just make the world a sliver better? Okay? Just find somebody to share that with. The qualities that make people happier are relatively simple. The one other piece that research has shown is important is having a desire to do so. That's the missing X piece. I remember being trained as a therapist numerous times, obviously because I needed numerous trainings before I got it, but having gone through a couple of programs, the thing that was always so challenging was trying to figure out, because the research doesn't really know, like when does that switch get turned in a human being that they get better? And the research would show with therapists that they tended not to know when that time was. That they didn't know what they said that was helpful, that it was usually different than what the patient found helpful, and that the essential dynamic was that there was something in the patient that got triggered. And it had a lot to do with therapist qualities of being a good listener and, empathic. But there is some ineffable thing of our intentions that underpins change and readiness and whatever it is that we do differently. At some point we have to want to and choose to. So some of the research on happiness shows, again, that happier people tend to be those who wake up in the morning and say, I want to be happy. I mean, it's very ironic to have to teach a whole class to come to that. Seriously, and you need a PhD, happier people are those who tend to wake up and think, God, I'd like to be happier. But not only do they have that as an intention, they then act on it during the day. And it's so simple, yet unbelievably not easy. But there were researchers who went around the world and interviewed happy people in all sorts of different communities. And they found that, rich didn't matter and poor didn't matter and attractive didn't matter and young didn't matter and old. I mean, it's not that it didn't matter, but it wasn't the core quality. That core quality was making it a priority to have a good life. And doing so in a way that was true to them. That they didn't tend to be cultural followers. That they didn't just follow the simple dictates of their culture. But they decided at some level that they wanted to be happy, but it took, for our culture, one of the things that we all do is have, to-do lists. And then we figure if we get those done, we'll be happy. We can have 20 years of to-do lists. We've gotten a lot of them done. It doesn't make us happier. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with to-do lists. There's nothing wrong with rushing around getting a lot done. It's just that our intention is often, when I get it done, I'll be happier. So what the happier people discovered through trial and error of intention was some of the things that I talked about before, about relationships and appreciation and, just a purpose. They generally tried to help others, not just themselves. But the thing that is so hard to teach is it's almost impossible to teach intention. Wake up in the morning and really want this, because our habits are so powerful. But the second piece is, okay, now that you want it, are you going to do anything? And it's like when they do that at work. So a person who tends to be more successful at happiness will say, my coworker made a mess. I just didn't want to upset myself about it because I didn't want to ruin my day. Another person might get really upset. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be assertive. It doesn't mean you don't talk about things. But the happier people tended to choose sometimes paths of least resistance to not bother with certain things. Now, you can't do that all day long. You have to be able to choose that judiciously. But it is just so interesting how again, and I will wind this down and maybe take a couple minutes of questions, how simple this is in its abstract. You know, it's like stuff from Sesame Street, or, you know, certainly from Mr. Rogers, right? It's not from the Stanford X. But the really interesting thing is that every Ivy League school now has a class on happiness. And what was so interesting to me was the one that was at Harvard that started all this was the most subscribed class they ever had. It was like hundreds of people and like dozens of TAs. Because, again, for each of us, we know that in a world where everything changes, whatever we attain will never fully satisfy. That it will slip away. And the really interesting data, and this is a perfectly good place for me to end, people who want a lot of money because they want a lot of money, the money doesn't satisfy them. It usually comes from attachment problems as a child. You know, that they didn't feel loved in some ways, and so they're making up for that. The Buddhists refer to that as the hungry ghost. You know, the hunger in us that's never satisfied. But because, you know, what happens with those people tends to be is they make the business deal that gives them money, they feel the rush from that, but then they need the next rush, or they need the next whatever it is. The people who become successful in business and make a good degree of money, which is a corollary of the success, tend to get more even satisfaction out of the money. Because it's not as a consequence of the hungry ghost. It's out of, and it doesn't have to be just a desire to be a good person. It can be out of a desire to make a product that will help people. Or out of using one's talents to help the world, to, you know, some way that my idiosyncratic skills are combinable in a way that is valuable. That even tends to have people get more satisfaction out of their material rewards, which to me is just fascinating data. So let me just encapsulate. There is nothing easy about this. It's a process. And everybody stumbles and falls on their face all the time. It takes a desire to do so, and then an effort to practice, and a willingness to be really humble as you fail. That said, the qualities, again, that tend to lead to a little more life satisfaction, and the way psychologists are, it's never something simple like happiness. I don't know what it's called. Personal, no, I can't even remember. Perceived satisfaction, or, you know, something ridiculous. But it's relationships, it's purpose, and it's finding things to like, you know, finding the good. I thank you all. I hope you learned something.